Well, welcome everybody to our study session, April 7th, 2025. As far as roll call, we have Vice Mayor Summers participating by Zoom, and Councilmember Heredia will be excused from at least our study session. He may make our council meeting upstairs. So as usual, item 1 is to review the agenda for tonight's council meeting. I know, council, we went over this previously, but are there any questions you would like to ask? Council? All right, we can wait till later on. Hearing none. Vice Mayor, do you have anything you want to discuss?
No, Mayor, it's covered by next week.
Thank you. With that, item 2A is a presentation on the Parks and Recreation Community Facilities Department budget. Andrea and your team, thank you.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I was supposed to go on Thursday morning, but we shifted the schedule around. Is it up? Oh. Ignore me. All right. Mayor, Council. Andrea Moore, I'm the Director for Parks, Rec, and Community Facilities, and with me is Allison Walker, our Senior Fiscal Analyst. I also have in the audience our Deputy Directors and our Management Administrator. If we have any more detailed questions, we have lots to go over with you this afternoon. So we are pleased to present to you our budget proposed for fiscal year 26. And we'll start with just an overview of our department. We have a pretty broad mission statement. We have a lot of services that we offer. Our mission statement is to provide a healthy and vibrant community with exceptional experiences, services to those who live, work, and play in Mesa. And so with the full scope of what our department offers, we have 3 commitment statements to drill it down a little bit more of being responsible stewards for our facilities, providing safe spaces and places for people to enjoy and recreate, and continuing to evolve our program offerings based on the community's needs. So we are starting with the discussion of our base budget reductions. So overall, our target for our department is based on our general fund and our environmental compliance fund allocations to total an $800,000 budget reduction. We have a couple of highlights here on how we are proposing to cover that reduction. But big picture, we're also going to be talking about enhancement and some program reductions and eliminations to cover altogether what our picture is proposed to be for next fiscal year. So there's quite a bit of detail in this, but starting with the $800,000 reduction, we're proposing to accomplish that with additional income and with reductions in our budget together. So when we look at what our fees and charges are proposed that went into effect this month for this starting this summer, we have about $300,000 in additional income projected to come in with those adjustments to those fees. So that's new revenue. And then in addition to that, we are eliminating the operation and maintenance funding and position associated with a capital project, the Elliott and Chrisman Park development. That was part of a bond program. Those funds were redirected to Signal Butte Park, Phase 2. And so part of our reduction is eliminating that O&M for that project. Then we have support that we've been providing for the Mesa Powwow that happens every October at Riverview Park. So we've been covering some of those expenses for that event, and then also providing in-kind services. So part of our reduction, because they have such a robust process of gathering donations and sponsorships for that event, would be to eliminate $15,000 of the city paying direct invoices for that event, but continuing to provide in-kind support for that. We're also proposing to close Fremont Pool after this summer. So this would be our last summer of operations. Fremont Pool, as we've talked about in the past, is our oldest pool, is built in the 70s and is ready for replacement. The bond last November included replacing that with a new pool on the grounds of Red Mountain Park next to the Red Mountain Center. That's not projected to come into existence for 6 years now. So what we're proposing is for this reduction to go ahead and close Fremont Pool after this summer, leave it closed and not have a pool serving that area of the city until we can afford to bring on a new pool at the Red Mountain site in 2031. And then the final one on this list is reducing contracted services and basins. That relates directly to the Environmental Compliance Fund that we have to trim back our expenses on that. And so we'd be looking at reduced frequencies, particularly in the winter, for cleaning services in order to accomplish that reduction. So that's how we get to the 800,000 net less resources used on the city budget. So it's not a direct $800,000 cut. It's the combination of the fee increases and the other reductions.
Andrea, we have a question. Ms. Spilsbury?
I have a few. Are you going into any more detail on these items?
On those particular items, no.
Okay, so a couple questions. What is the Chrisman and Elliott Capital Improvement Project that was eliminated?
Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, that was a parking lot and some soccer field lights, soccer stands in that corridor. So we have the 3 basins that are up along Elliott on the Chrisman alignment, and then there's about 20 acres in between those basins that is city property intended to be a future park. And that was part of the 2018 bond program that the funds were transferred to the cost overages on Signal View Park Phase 2.
Okay, is it eliminated completely or just deferred?
For now, there are no funds available for that. So there is currently a parking lot there that was done. It's a temporary lot. It was made with millings. And the basins are there, grass, beautiful basins, perimeter sidewalk. People play sports on those, remote control planes and helicopters use those. So they're very active, but there are no funds for the sports complex development at this time.
Okay. My next question is the Fremont Pool, which is just outside my district, so I know it's in yours, but as a mom with young kids, I would have died if you'd taken my neighborhood pool away for 6 years if I was counting on that for swim lessons and for getting through the summer. So what is the nearest pool?
Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, probably Shepherd Pool to
Okay.
the west would be the next closest. So altogether, right now we have 9 pools in our system, and those are based on serving an area of about 5 square miles around them. The reduction of this one brings us down to 8. We're also, because of the bond, looking at adding the pool in Eastmark on the high school campus.
right.
So that we're projecting to open in 2030 to help serve Southeast Mesa.
Okay.
But we would still have that gap. Shepherd is within that service area of Fremont, but just on the edge.
Right, I can picture where Shepherd is. Is Fremont, is it just that you cannot eke out any more summers out of it without doing enough work to make it safe or something? Or I can't imagine this is just to eliminate the cost of it. I'm assuming it's probably in disrepair enough that it doesn't make sense to keep it open?
Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, it is in disrepair. So we've been inching it along year over year, trying to keep it open. But in the interest of trying to identify cost savings and still not incurring the additional capital costs, replastering, replacing of filtration equipment, the decking, if you've been there over the years, continues to collapse into the pool and then we have to build it back up again. It's time to do more of those extensive repairs to it.
Okay. I remember when Taylor Pool was closed, but then we had Mesa High's pool open. So I don't know, I'm trying to remember how many, what the time frame between those closing. I wish we had a little bit shorter time period there because 6 years is a really long time. It's half of a childhood almost, right? So, okay, well, I don't love that. And then, the landscaping services in the basins, is that citywide? Is it certain ones that you guys have figured out that you don't need to do I mean, I don't think much landscaping happens in the summers, correct? Anyways?
Well, Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, the mowing happens in the summers.
Okay.
And so we'd be looking at reducing the amount of times we go out and do trash cleanup in the winter. And
Oh.
making sure we can be responsive when an issue comes up, somebody dumps or trash in there or some other reason for us to do a special cleaning, but we'd be reducing the regularly scheduled cleanings
Okay.
during those winter months.
And just across the city then?
Correct.
Like every basin? Okay.
Yes, go forth.
So you said the new pool in Southeast Mesa will be done in 2025, which means you're going to start when? 2030. Oh, you said 2030.
2030.
Sorry. It is 2025. So when will you start that project?
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, the design is just starting on both pools now. So engineering has hired the architect and the design team to do those two designs together over the next year and a half.
Okay. And completion by 2030. I guess I'm trying to figure out the logic. Like, okay, we closed Fremont, we saved $235,000, but we're building a new pool with new cost,
Mayor,
multi-million
Councilmember
dollar.
Goforth, that gets us into that time period on the outer edge of what budget presented as this forecast period, so we can see and reevaluate whether we're seeing income high enough from sales tax and other sources in order to accomplish taking on that O&M.
But what we're saying is we can't afford what we have, we need to cut back, and yet we're building a new one at the
So
same
Mayor and
time.
Council, we're not building, we're designing. These are pools that were
Oh.
approved by the voters, so we're trying to be very careful. And in that assumption of those bonds that were approved by the voters was the closure of this pool. We're just proceeding with the closure of this pool, but in order to manage that forecast period and where you saw those in years 4 and 5 where we have some challenges, the idea is we have the capital dollars, right? We can continue doing the design moving forward. Obviously, we'll complete design in a year or so, and then we can evaluate the timing of actual construction, to your point, because then that will create operation and maintenance obligations. So we can assess. Now, I'm hopeful that maybe after design, we come back and say, hey, things are better, we've made some adjustments, efficiencies, maybe we can just keep moving forward with those pools. I don't know. I mean, we're trying to position ourselves to give the flexibility. We're trying to give you the scenario under which we believe right now our best forecast suggests, so that's why we're saying, you move forward with design, we've got the money to do that, that doesn't impact the general fund operations. Not until we decide to actually build it and stand it up will it do that. But we'll have time to make that assessment more than a year from now.
How much is the design? How much is that?
You have that?
I do, just give me a minute. All right, Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, the total project for that is $34 million for the Red Mountain Pool. And it'd be about, the design alone,
Is 7%, 10%? 7 or 8% of that, so less than 3 million.
But you talked about two pools, Eastmark Pool.
correct. The design is combined onto one design contract for both of those.
And that will save us money.
It does.
Okay.
And the design costs are in the capital
Yes.
expenditure.
Answer your question?
Yeah, and I understand that, they are in the capital, but we do, as you said, you do have to, the operation of it, right?
Right, so we'll design it,
Yeah,
and then there's no obligation, I mean, we'll then assess, right? To your point, we'll assess, okay, if we were to continue and build it, will the budget be in a position to support the O&M? If not, we can delay more, or if it looks more optimistic, we can continue moving forward with construction.
what happens to the Fremont Pool? Just, do you demolish it, do you?
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, our agreement with Mesa Public Schools says that we return it to flat ground. So we would demolish the pool and finish it off with gravel. That's what we did We decommissioned pools at Taylor, Powell, and Poston junior highs. And all three of those sites, we returned to just gravel, completely removing the improvements.
You decommissioned them when you added new ones?
Regional pools, right? We tried to
Yeah.
go to this regional pool concept instead of trying to have them at the school, at the middle schools.
Yeah.
But Councilmember Goforth, we had 12 pools at one time, so we're at 9 now. We did change our service model from neighborhood-based to more of a regional destination type pool.
Okay, thank you.
Is the 235,000 reduction per year, or is it all,
Correct.
it's per year?
It's
So
per
over
year.
the course of 6 years, you'd save $235,000
Each year.
each year? Yeah, each year, so,
Times 6, times 5.
okay.
All right, moving on to slide 5. We have our year-end actuals from fiscal '24 on here. Excuse me, our budget for this year, our year-end estimate for this year, and then our proposed budget with the reductions and enhancements in place on those numbers. So we have a line on the bottom here that shows net loss. Again, we're looking at increasing our fees and adjusting our staffing models. And so those together create the net reduction of $800,000 to the city's resources. All right, so the enhancement that I was mentioning is part-time staffing. So beginning last fall, we began to realize that we were staffing our programs higher than what our budget was allocated at. And the basis for that was the incredible demand for our services. So our participation will show towards the end of this presentation has gone up exponentially over the past 5 years. And our revenue has gone up with it, and we were not making adjustments to our budget to keep up with those changes. And so what this 24.7 FTE addition to our budget does is keeps us at our current service level. That is not adding new programs at all. It's the staffing that we've been covering with vacancy savings and under expending in other parts of our department budget to cover these overages. The reason why it's coming forward as a correction this fiscal year for fiscal year 26 is the 2% reduction we did last year. It's about $950,000 and then another $800,000 this year. And that's part of what highlighted to us that we were making these adjustments and our budget was not structured to match that. And so with the reduction again this year, the increase that we're asking for keeps us at our current service level.
Most of these are part-time. All these
It
are
is all
All
part-time.
these are part-time.
Part-time, non-benefited positions. All right, so in relation to that adjustment, again, trying to keep our overall impact to the city budget down $800,000. We have a series of program cancellations and reductions that we're proposing to put in place to help cover that increase. And so that's what these next 3 slides show. The first one are complete cancellations that we're proposing. Eliminating the recreation center special events, so those are the fall and spring festivals at Webster and Jefferson and Eagles, and special events at Red Mountain Center. Holiday closures for Red Mountain Center, Tennis Center, and all of our pools. We pay a higher staff rate on those days, the holidays, and we're seeing very low attendance as well on those days. Sunday closure of Tennis and Pickleball Center, except for tournaments. Again, it's very low participation, low court rentals compared to what we're paying to staff it. For school break camps, we're proposing to eliminate fall, winter, and spring school break camps at our tri-centers. So that's Webster, Jefferson, and Eagles community centers. But we would still have our after-school programs at those 3 centers and still have our full summer camp offerings. Eagles Community Center currently has open gym time on Friday evenings. We would eliminate that. eliminating the subsidy for Feastival food truck events at Pioneer Park. That's a city-supported special event. And so if the Feastival group chooses to proceed with that, they would be paying paying the full rate in order to be there. And then the final one is Sunday public swim closure at the pools during the summer. So Keno and Skyline are the only two pools currently open on Sundays, and we would eliminate those hours.
Question.
Maybe I missed it, but is the 800,000 from the beginning of the presentation, is that the 2% you guys were asked to eliminate?
Councilmember Spilsbury, that is the 2%. And what we're going through now is to help us cover the enhancement request for the 24 part-time.
So she gave you the list of the 800,000, but then she asked, remember, this is net 2%?
Yes.
So when we added the,
1.25, whatever, yes.
we had to come back now with that full amount. So ultimately, all this adds up to that
It
number,
does.
right?
So the 800 was that first chart, and then now the 1.3
So yes,
is all of this stuff.
That was the first cut, and then, but then recognizing we needed to add back $1 million to $1.3 million, we had to go back in and say, okay, what other reductions can we get to cover?
And
that
obviously, I know this is gonna, like, duh, but all the people that were going to be working these things that you're eliminating, all of those hours and people that were needed are taken off of what is needed.
Right, that's what helps get us there, right, I'm assuming?
Councilmember Spilsbury, they shift to everything else that continues.
Okay,
So a lot of these, now, Andrew, make sure you said this a few times, I don't know if it applies to all of these, but the assessment that was done here is kind of this, I don't want to call it a cost-benefit analysis, a cost to benefit of the programs, where oftentimes we're spending more staff time than the participation during these activities. So we
Okay.
kind of did that assessment. We said, okay, we've got whatever, 3 or 4 staff, but we're only getting a handful of people. So this is really based on kind of levels of activity that are
Yeah.
participating versus our costs to keep a facility open or to run a facility. So that's where this is, because these would be the lower participation programs versus the staffing that's required, regardless of how many people show up, right? We're staffed. That's the assessment we used for kind of prioritizing these above
right.
any other.
I guess that's what I'm kind of missing here is like maybe the data that, but I mean, we could dig in every single one and maybe I just need to do that with you later, but of how are these programs getting used, how many kids, because
give
I
you
know, for example, I'm really concerned about teens, right? And so I want to make sure that we're doing things to keep teens off the streets and getting into trouble. And one of the things that I wanted to see like expand was those open gym Friday nights so that kids had somewhere fun to go that was safe and keep them out of trouble. And now we're eliminating something that I loved. And that's just one example, but I don't know if kids were going and how many kids did that look like and how many staff did that. Like, I don't know what the details are on some of these programs. So I guess maybe like, and there's no cost put here of like how much these things cost. You know, I'm sure you know what they are, but they're not here for me to see. So it's hard to know. I mean, we know the parks don't make the city money, right? So this is quality of life stuff and making those kind of calls on what's more beneficial to which kids. And, you know, I think pools are kind of a no-brainer. I see it looks like the majority of the staff positions are aquatics. So I'm assuming, I mean, that's all of your lifeguards and swimless and
Correct.
teachers and all of that, right? So I think that's an easy case to be made that those are important and that's what our community wants and needs in the summer. But yeah, it's hard without seeing like numbers on these. I know Jefferson's in my, district, and I know that is a neighborhood that's full of a lot of need. And so, and I've gone to that what are we calling it? Carnival or special event or whatever, and seeing how popular it is and how many people are there, So it just, anything we're
Right.
getting rid of is kind of just painful to me, but.
So Councilmember Spilsbury, I will say for the carnivals, for example, most schools do their own spring or fall carnival. And
If they have a
they're
robust
talking
PTO to do it for them.
To those 3 schools about taking that on.
Yeah, because a lot of times you don't have the parent groups in those schools that are able to
Instead of
do
having
it.
us support it.
Okay. But, and so none of, those aren't Celebrate Mesa, those are just those ones that are at the smaller.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so maybe I just need to get with you. I totally get the Sunday closures if they're not being utilized. School break camps and summer camps, I mean, it
Not
looks like you're
canceling
still
summer
doing,
camps.
what?
We're not canceling summer camps.
Yeah, so the school break camps, you know, like how, I would love to see the numbers on that. Like how were these being utilized and are there gonna be families that are gonna have a hard time figuring out what to do with their kids during those times or, you know, anyways, just some of the ramifications of these decisions. I guess maybe you and I can meet and I can look at numbers and see what, how many kids we're looking at.
Councilmember Spilsbury, we definitely put these on the list because they're lower participation.
Okay.
And because we do still need to balance our resources. And there are other alternatives available. The school district is still offering some of those programs
That's what I was
during the
wondering if, like,
breaks.
I know we have nonprofits that do different camps, like, can they use our facilities if they had something to fill in the gap? all
Not
of that-
likely, because then
Okay.
we'd have to have staffing there to have the
Oh, okay.
facility open.
Okay. All right, just trying to think of, you know, families in need in our community and what they need the most, so, okay.
Mr. Adams.
I promise I won't belabor this question, but I need to go back to slide 6 for just a minute, if you would, please. I don't understand what we're presenting here. Are these reallocations? Are we moving money around? Are they cuts? Are they additions? I don't follow where we're going with this slide.
Sure,
With this
Mayor,
million
Council-
two.
Excuse me. There's a lot of flowers out this time of year. Here, Councilmember
I'm there
Adams.
too.
These are additions. So this is an enhancement, adding the 24.7 FTEs and 1.3 million to our budget. But we're trying to keep our net impact to the city resources still $800,000 lower. And so this
So-
complete picture is also going to show some fee increases, some other program reductions in order to still make that happen with these additions.
We just didn't keep up with the staffing levels, especially since there were part-time staffing levels as the programs grew and we were opening up more hours. We weren't in the budget adding the additional part-time positions. So what was happening is Andrew was just finding other line items to pull the money from the end of the year. But as we've been tightening everybody's budget, those savings aren't there anymore. So we've got to true up the budget and say, okay, we actually need this many people on the budget document with the associated cost. You can't expect that you're going to have savings in some kind of commodity or something else, because now we've already started taking those reductions.
So do we still net out at 800 or is 800 plus, we
Yeah,
saved
you're right.
800, but we add this to it?
We have to then find another 1.25 on
Under-
top of that, correct?
Okay, understood.
To get to a net of, get to the true 2%.
Gotcha, thank you, appreciate it.
So Andrea, just maybe for simplicity, when you say 22.1 part-time non-benefited employees, that's on top of the employees you have today? In addition
Mayor,
to
that's on top of our budgeted employees today.
budgeted
Not
employees?
the-
We do have this amount of employees on our payroll.
Because they're being covered, not in the personnel line item, they're being covered by savings and other line items as well. It just kind of grew and we weren't, apparently, obviously, we weren't adjusting and adding into the personnel count where it needed to be. We were adding and then probably didn't go back and reconcile with that in the budget. Instead, we just, well, we can make it because she's got savings in other places. And so it didn't become an issue. But now that we've started tightening these budgets down, those savings aren't available outside of the personnel line item.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
Slide 8. Okay, so slide 8 are reductions in programming. So Fun and Fit is our mobile recreation unit, and that's a new addition. We created the additional, we're running 3 units in order to activate our parks, primarily in the downtown corridor. So we're finding that in July and August, because it is so hot in the parks, the participation was really low last summer. So we're suggesting a savings by not running the units those 2 months. Red Mountain Center, we're suggesting to close an hour early Monday through Thursday and 2 hours early on Fridays. And again, that's based on the visitation numbers being low during those times, not eliminating any of the classes or fitness programs as the schedule currently sits. Eliminating the off-season water exercise classes and reducing lap swim in the off-season time. So those are high-cost time periods, and water exercise classes during the colder months have very low attendance. So we're presenting to eliminate those classes during the colder months. Limiting aquatic special events. That is something that has grown over time, and we're proposing to rein that back into having special events, special days during public swim hours only, or raising fees enough to completely cover the cost. For example, Pumpkin Splash, we offer that at a highly subsidized rate. I don't have the amount yet of what that would increase to, but we're working through what that would need to be in order to continue to happen, because that's not a public swim time. Reducing subsidized pool rentals for affiliated youth group programming. That's the majority of groups that rent and use our pools. So an example is the Mesa Aquatics Club, but there's also dive teams, water polo teams, synchronized swim teams that use our pools at a subsidized rate. And so we're looking at reducing those hours currently and then working with those teams to gradually increase our fees in order to increase our cost recovery on those. Streamlining aquatic staff training sessions to make sure that when we are paying lifeguards for certification time, that it's directly related to certification. Some of those hours have increased over the years as our staff, number of staff have increased, and so we're looking at streamlining that and offering some classes during their rotations off of the deck during regular work hours. Reducing public swim by 1 hour every day, and we're still working through whether that looks like opening 1 hour later or closing 1 hour earlier during the public swim season in the summer. Canceling 2 sessions of swim lessons daily. Again, that's looking at our subsidy rate, and if we continue to offer additional sessions, they would have to be at full cost recovery, full price for that, but they are not currently. And eliminating off-season flow rider programming. So flow rider would continue to be open for rentals when the rental covers the complete cost of it, but not having flow rider league and lessons during the off-seasons.
Question, Ms. Pillsbury.
I have a lot of questions. When you're saying to limit the special events at the pools, is that for groups that are like renting it to make money on their own programming, or are you even talking about like a family reunion or a church group renting it out at that night?
Councilmember Spilsbury, I'm talking about things like the tie-dye or the bubble fest that happen during public swim, and not having additional hours for special events.
These are your ones you run though, right?
These are ones that we run. This is not
Somebody wants
rentals.
to rent a pool, that's not.
So then if an outside group rents it, they're not getting a subsidized cost?
Councilmember Spilsbury, we are still working on having that's part of what we'll present, is increasing our fees again this year in the fall to get closer to cost recovery on that.
Okay.
So
Because I know
they
there's
are
groups
currently
that
subsidized
come and
to
do
some degree.
programming at the pool that are really fun and the community loves it, but then they're charging their own customers to do that. But then you might have a church group or a family group that's just renting the pool for their function, right? So there's a big difference in those two to me. Do they pay the same?
There's a rate for nonprofits and a rate for for-profit commercial use, and those are different rates.
Okay.
So the commercial use is intended to be 100% cost recovery,
Okay,
and we're pretty close to that now.
okay. Because I know you
only a
still have to
slight
staff
adjustment.
all of these either way.
Right.
But so you're specifically talking about your own programming that
Correct.
you're doing? Okay. And then reducing the public swim by 1 hour, again, are there numbers on that to show that there's less kids there in the first hour or the last hour?
Councilmember Spilsbury, there are, and so that's why that's on the list.
Okay.
Is it has less of an impact to the public.
Okay. I could assume that these are on here because of numbers. I just don't get to see the numbers. So, okay, thanks. I think that's it.
Any other questions? If not,
We have one more slide on these, I think.
Yep. The final changes include fee increases. And so we're looking at charging affiliated youth groups for site supervision and field preps. They're currently not charged for those. And so that would increase our revenue. And we're working with those groups to give them advance notice of that. Raising fees for affiliated group rentals. Overall, we have cost recovery targets by program. That's another slide here coming up. And so there are some fees that need to be adjusted to stay in line with that. Raising fees for private rentals in fields, rooms, and pools to 100% cost recovery where we're not there now. And then overall, raising our fees 9 to 10%. So the Parks and Rec, field, and commercial facilities fee structure is based on ranges. We just started our new ranges. You approved those a few weeks ago, and they just started in April so that they're in place for summer registration that started today. We're looking at doing a second round of fee changes with the Parks Board review to go into effect in the fall. And so we would do these changes within the current ranges that you've approved and work on across the board increases of 9 to 10%. Reviewing each of those changes with the Parks Board that's advisory to you at their May meeting. So that's our proposal to cover the enhancement for the part-time staffing, to do that second round of fee increases to go into effect this fall. So it would not impact summer programming. We would start it after the conclusion of this summer. Great majority of that is in convention center and amphitheater fee increases that would altogether add up to increasing $1.2 million in revenue that's not currently realized by the city across all of those programs. The cost recovery information that I mentioned, we do have policies in place and then specific targets for each program. And so generally the philosophy that we follow is if it's a facility that's available for drop-in public open use, there's no cost recovery on that. So our maintenance of all of our facilities, the utilities on our buildings, those types of things do not come into play on our cost recovery. When we're looking at putting drop-in access for, say, a gym, a public swim time, a Ramada rental, we're targeting 20 to 30% cost recovery on those. And that's based on, these cost recovery lines are based on the staffing, janitorial, cleanup type functions that need to happen because of those uses, direct costs. Then our third service level, recreation-focused educational program. So this would be our youth sports, providing an introductory level of exposure to all different sports and swimming. After schools, camps, any kind of adaptive program, we're targeting 30 to 50% cost recovery. Then level 4, when we have more specific classes, programs for a more advanced level of participation, and adult sports. Adult sports is at 100% cost recovery. Some of those other special interest programs are at 50%. And then when level 5, when we have a trip or an excursion or a rental of a commercial facility where there's an individual or a corporate benefit to it, 100% or more cost recovery on that.
Ms. Pillsbury.
Sorry. What are the current numbers on this?
So overall, our department's at about 32% cost recovery, individually by each program, because there's so many. If you have questions, I can tell you some of them. But for example, our Jefferson and Webster centers are running at about 20% cost recovery, whereas Red Mountain Center is almost at 50% cost recovery.
I guess I'm just looking for how different this is than it is currently. I mean, do we have anything that's 50 to 100%? Some stuff.
Councilmember Spilsbury, the Red Mountain Center is just about at 50%. Our summer programs, our summer camps are at 55%. Our adult sports are at 118%. Our cemetery at 140%.
Okay.
Ms. Duff.
So are these service levels currently in place, or you're creating them?
Councilmember
To
Duff, they
establish-
already exist.
Okay, so I think what Councilmember Spilsbury was talking about, what is the current cost recovery and versus the goal, which is, I think, trying to see where we are and where we're going.
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, the proposal isn't to change what our targets are.
Okay, these are established
These are
currently.
established, but for example, our camps, swim programs are currently at about 30%. We're looking at pushing them to closer to 50% cost recovery. So it's still within that range.
Oh, so the cost recovery, like on service level 2, is currently at 20, and you're going to get it to 30. On the next level, level 3, 30, try to get it to 50. Is that or what? this
Councilmember
means?
Duff, the definitions stay the same. We're not proposing to change that. It's just within the range, getting closer to the upper end of the range.
Okay, and the first number is probably closer to where the current recovery
Currently we're
is.
at.
The higher number, what you're establishing as a revenue.
Correct.
Okay,
It's right, you have it today. We're just going to be working closer to get back up to the top of the range.
Correct.
all right, got it.
All right. Ms. Goforth.
I have a question. If we could go back to slide 5, your expenditure totals. Commercial recreation, what's resource management?
Resource management includes the park rangers, it is, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Our maintenance functions, aquatics maintenance is up in the recreation one, but sports field maintenance, park maintenance, basin maintenance is in resource management. Our administrative functions, our special events office, our registration function are in that resource management.
Andrew, you probably do the first two, and everything else falls out underneath, I suspect. Because she looks at commercial, she looks at recreation, she can define those pretty easily, and all other
Yes.
activities of the department
That's correct.
fall to the one below. It might have been easier to describe the first two, is what I'm just suggesting, but is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
So commercial, give me an example
Yeah,
of
give me an
commercial.
example if you can.
Sure. Councilmember Goforth, commercial is the convention center, amphitheater, and the post, and the cemetery. The golf course,
Okay.
which the city has very little expense there now. Recreation includes all of our recreation programs, so that's adaptive, aquatics, summer programs, youth programs, the Fun and Fit program. What am I missing? Adult sports, youth sports.
Tennis center.
So I was kind of looking at like, kind of back of the house, I mean, admin, is it kind of separated like that as your resource management, whereas commercial and recreation are the programs that you provide?
Councilmember
Public
Goforth, it's the
facing?
direct cost to the programs are in those
Oh.
categories.
Okay.
What we do to administer and to maintain our facilities is in resource management.
Okay. And mostly facilities, you said? Maintain and operate your
The
facilities?
parks, pools, sports fields, and basins. Maintenance functions are in resource management.
Okay. Okay.
Good? All right, carry on.
Go back to slide 12. That was to give you an example. If we don't do some of the other program reductions, fee increases that we were just talking about, the alternative to that, if we keep the staffing level where it needs to be for our program offerings, would be more drastic reductions in our programming, such as bringing Keno and Skyline Aquatic Centers to be seasonal pools. They're currently year-round pools. Reducing or eliminating the Celebrate Mesa in the spring at Pioneer Park, and eliminating the community fishing program. So those three examples, that's about $500,000 in program impacts on our budget, just to give you an example of the types of things we would be talking about cutting if we are not able to increase our fees in the fall.
I guess I'd like a little clarification if we don't increase our fees, we have to cut these programs. And yet we're adding 24 people.
We're not adding,
I-
those people exist.
Okay.
We're just making sure, we're adding the dollars to the budget to cover the cost of the part-time employees that are already being used for support the programs. When we added the personnel, we weren't adding, the budget wasn't keeping up with the additional part-time employees.
So despite all the, the eliminations of programming and some of the facilities, we're still at the point where we need to add 24 full-time employees into the budget.
Councilmember Goforth,
They're
that's correct.
part-time, aren't they?
They are part-time,
Yeah,
non-benefited.
You're right, the
Yes.
dollars need to be there.
The dollars.
The staff has been there for years doing the programs. We just, for whatever, in the process, part-time employees sometimes harder to track, and they just didn't get caught up into the personnel line item of the budget. Instead, we would just find ways, and it probably happened just incrementally, we were finding other savings in the budget. Now that we've started tightening on those, anything that has a savings it gets taken now. And so it caught us short of these positions. Your overall budget is how much? 30, what did we say it was?
59.
Yeah, just over,
Or wait, you mean the net?
total.
55?
Yeah, so $1.2 million in personnel, unfortunately, just got absorbed by other savings.
Mr. Adams?
I guess a two-part question. The first part is, and there may well be reasons we don't do this as a municipality, but let's take the fishing program, for example. Have we ever thought about trying to find sponsors for these things? I don't know if we as a city can go to the private sector and say, hey, would you like to sponsor these things? People sponsor the sides of or advertise on buses. Maybe we can, I don't know, throwing the idea out, asking the question. Maybe we wouldn't have to cut them if we could find somebody to pay for them and attach their name. So that's one part of the question. Two, where were the expenses for these people actually being booked then? Or do we know? Were they just out there somewhere? Or?
Mayor, Councilmember Adams, they were tracked where they needed to be. It's just the funding to cover those expenses was moved from other positions that were vacant and other cost savings for services or commodities, and then transferred into our payroll.
Within your department?
Yes.
Okay, so they weren't
No,
expensive.
it was all contained within parks.
Understood. Okay.
And
Thank you.
Councilmember Adams, the first question, yes, sponsorships are possible. They take staffing in order to generate them as well, and we have never put resources to that, but it is a possibility.
Anything else, council?
So there are, Mayor, a couple more slides about the numbers I keep talking about of how many people are participating in our programs.
Sure,
Go through
let's see
these
'em.
real quick. This first one is attendance at all of our programs and facilities except for our pools. And so you can see coming out of COVID, it's gotten as high as it was pre-COVID back in 2017, and our rentals are increasing dramatically. Lots of people are valuing our facilities and having their events at them. The next one is the program participation in 3 programs specifically. So adaptive are both cognitive sports programs and cognitive social programs, as well as our inclusive programming. So when people are participating in our programs and need a little bit of additional assistance, that's all captured through adaptive. The youth programs, our summer camps, our teen programs, our junior lifeguards, and our camp counselors that come through as preteens getting ready to come work for us. Those are all in youth programs there. And then the Tri-Centers, Webster Eagles, and Jefferson after-school and summer camp programs. Then tennis and pickleball at Gene Autry Park at the Mesa Tennis and Pickleball Center. since we opened the new pickleball courts, that's taking off famously. So they're about equal pickleball and tennis use at that facility, but also very high compared to previous years. Aquatics attendance has gone up, so these charts stack the different types of attendance that we see come in. Public swim is the red at the bottom of each bar. The rentals include the youth teams and adult teams that use our facilities, as well as parties, rentals, any kind of private group that comes in there, and Mesa Public Schools using the pools all go into that orange section of the bar, and then swim lessons are at the top.
Ms. Spilsbury.
The swim lesson looks pretty stable. It's hard to tell, but so is that
It
those
is.
numbers haven't really increased?
Right. Councilmember
Okay.
Spilsbury, it's about 15,000 people a year.
And swim lessons are provided at all of the pools?
They are.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Special events by year, so the red bar, the beginning bar, are the applications that come in since we created the special events office in our department for citywide event support. The licenses issued are the orange bars, so even the folks that go all the way through the process, the numbers are increasing. And then the third bar are city-sponsored and city-supported events. And so the very bottom gray boxes are city-sponsored events. Those numbers are growing, as well as city-supported events. At your meeting on Thursday, you asked about what is not being funded in the presentation from infrastructure funding. So we had 3 categories that we were trying to increase funding for, and we're not able to afford that at this time. We do have $3 million allocated for infrastructure replacement currently. We had requested to increase that to $6 million on the basis of falling behind on our infrastructure maintenance, especially on irrigation and playgrounds. So the bond program will help some of that. There are a couple projects, as you know, in the November bond package, but not all of them. And so these are the types of things that we will continue to be behind on replacing. And
Any
that's it.
questions, Ms. Goforth?
Can you, slide 13 and 14, I'm trying to figure out attendance and rentals by calendar year on slide 13. Could you explain that? And then program participants by calendar year on 14. So youth programs, for instance, on 14, in 2024, 3,000?
Correct. Councilmember Goforth, so that is included in the 1.4 million, you said 2024, right? The about 1.4 million, 1.5 million that we had on slide 13 for our total of all programs.
Okay, so slide 13 is total of all
Correct.
programs. Okay, and then you broke them out.
She just
into
broke out
3.
some, highlighted a few.
Yeah. Okay. So youth programs, in 2024, we had 3,000 participants?
Correct. So youth programs, that's our camp programs for summer, and the junior camp counselors, TLT, a teen leadership program. So those are the kids that are not quite old enough to work for us yet, go through that youth programs. It's not everything
It's not
that
all
we do
youth.
for
It's
all
not the
youth.
soccer, and
not,
I was going
no.
to say, that seems low.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
we should, that sounds like a broad term, youth programs, maybe we should, leadership programs or something, we could use another term.
Okay, it's
The really, slide
1.4
13 is showing
million.
the overall.
Thank you.
Ms. Spilsbury.
On that last slide we were just looking at, are those, like the playground renovations, is one playground that's not getting renovated or multiple playgrounds? And same with irrigation, is it multiple irrigation projects or one irrigation project?
Councilmember Spilsbury, there are multiple projects. So on irrigation, we're about $14 million in projects behind, and on playgrounds, about $6 million. So that's multiple sites. In the case of playgrounds, a lot of our playgrounds were installed in the mid-1980s, and so a playground typically lasts about 20 years. We have about 75 playgrounds, and so we're currently only renovating 1 to 2 playgrounds a year, it's not enough to keep up with the amount that need attention.
And so I'm assuming we prioritize by safety. If there was a safety issue at a playground, we would take care of that.
Correct. So we remove equipment if it's not safe.
Okay.
And then if we can find replacement parts, we put those replacement parts on. But what we're finding is these playgrounds are getting to the age where replacement parts aren't available anymore. And so we do have some playgrounds that are getting smaller and smaller as the replacement equipment.
Like we just start removing stuff. Obviously, the park can stay open, but we're just removing anything that's not safe.
Councilmember Spilsbury, we will not leave an unsafe condition in a park, absolutely. But it's not always possible for us to find the replacement piece.
So, I mean, I guess I'm just still wondering, how do you decide and prioritize, like, getting up to date on playground equipment versus doing the fishing programs? Or, I mean, I don't know how you make those kinds of decisions, because we don't get to decide specifics
That's what
like that.
Andrea and I do, sit down in an ugly meeting and have these discussions.
Just because, like, I don't feel like we have, like, a true say in what our community wants more than another, or like how you would even figure that out. But it sounds like we're way behind on playgrounds, and playgrounds are like everything to a neighborhood and a community. And versus, I mean, I think the fishing programs are really well attended, but you're going to hit like a very different group of kids going to the fishing program versus that are just going to go down the street to play on their playground that's disappearing. So,
Councilmember Spilsbury, the fishing is putting the fish in the lake. It's not necessarily the fishing events that the park rangers do, just to clarify that. But we do the master plan.
And I just use that as an example. I mean, I could pick different examples, but.
Our master plan that we adopted in 2022 with you included citizen surveys and prioritization exercises that were the span of everything our department does. And so it's those updates where we're able to have those conversations about what is a priority and what isn't when we do those master plan updates and going back out to the community on feedback on what's important to them.
And we did add millions of dollars of playground renovations in the proposed bond.
Yeah, I feel like we've been doing a lot of that actually too.
Is it enough? No, but it was what we could afford. You know, in that whole package, and the council prioritized what went to playgrounds, what went to, I can't remember all the other different things you had in your pools and
Pickleball.
We had all those in there.
Irrigation.
And the council helped us go through, even by district, out deciding what was most important inside the district.
Okay, so yeah, with all of that community feedback, that's how you're kind of, because I mean, you didn't know, I have 6 children. So over 25 years, like all of this stuff is huge, right? Like parks, playgrounds, all the events, facilities. And so all of these cuts are just feeling really painful to me, I guess. And I'm just trying to figure out how we make those priorities, because I can't think of something that would be higher than making sure the playground equipment at your park down the street is robust and safe and something that the whole neighborhood could use, because it's accessible to everyone. Like programs where you have to have a parent take you to the program, pay for the program, drop you off, pick you up, which is a lot of what we do, is not accessible to every kid. I mean, it is technically, but it's just not in reality. But going to your playground in your neighborhood would be accessible to every single kid. So to me, that just should take higher priority than some of the other stuff we're doing. I'm not the one making these decisions, I guess, but I guess I can voice it as a council member. So I don't know. I guess we don't have all the money in the world to do all the things, but.
Yeah, I guess what is the latest park that we added to the park system? Is it?
Councilmember Goforth, the Red Mountain Park expansion was the latest. We've added the Mountain, what did we call that? Mountain Vista Trail
Valley Trail.
up by Thomas and Record. That was a new site. Signal Butte Park, Monterey was an expansion.
Signal View?
Signal Butte Park.
Yep.
And
all
the Eastmark
parks.
phases.
All the Eastmark parks, yeah.
Yeah. There hasn't been any, I guess just the reason I say it is because, I guess it's a philosophy, right? Do you put the money into maintaining the existing assets that you have, or do you build new ones? And how do you make that determination? You know, I mean, how do we make that determination? What's
Well,
more
and a lot of
important?
the park projects that are in the bond package are actually going into existing parks and doing renovations and adding pickleball courts to a variety, at least four, I think, different
Correct.
existing
The
parks.
only new sites on the 24 bond package was the Eastmark Pool and the Community Center in Central Mesa.
But
Everything
that's-
else is an existing park
Yeah.
with addition and
Shading.
amenities or renovations.
You good? Anybody else? Vice Mayor, any comments? It's probably hard when you're not feeling well.
Thank you.
I would just, counsel, just a suggestion, I know as we move through the budget process, I was talking to Mr. Brady, if we have specific questions, write them down, and then we can send them to staff, and when we do the wrap-up, we can make adjustments if we needed to any of the items that we've talked about. So if we can do that, then I help you'll simplify. So-
I do think, maybe I'm in minority here, but I think it's important to say those questions out loud and let the public hear the answers to the questions. I mean, I'm sure there's other parents out there wondering why we're not taking care of all of our playgrounds and why we have to prioritize other things. Like, I want that out there in the public for everyone to hear my questions. I don't. And it's too cumbersome to wait till we've had 10 budget presentations and then bring up questions at the end of those 10. Like, that doesn't work for me.
Isn't the point of this to discuss it? I'm,
No,
It means we
I'm
have
just
long
saying-
meetings.
No, that's fine. Not what I'm saying is specifically, if you could take your questions to, as you ask them and write them down, and then we can send them to staff. and-
We'll do
and
the
get some
same.
During
This
summarized.
is not
During
intended
this.
to cut this short.
Yeah,
It's just
we're-
intended as if you have other questions coming up. we
As
want
you
to-
think about after the budget
Yeah,
presentations.
we're not trying to stop
oh,
this.
okay,
no.
after the,
Yeah,
Okay.
you might sit there at home and go, oh, I wish I asked this question.
yeah.
And
They
then
were just saying
then
who's
put it
getting
down.
questions kind of after the meetings, and I said, well, let's just submit them and write them, then we'll try to answer them at the end of it. So it's kind of like after the meeting, if you have a question. But nobody's trying to suggest we don't have that
No,
conversation.
we'll have as long as meeting as you want,
Okay,
okay?
okay, good. I want long meetings.
And who do we send those questions to?
Mike Kennington, of course.
Gonna be a popular guy.
Anything else,
But it-
Andrea?
Just to clarify, though, it is appropriate for me to maybe meet with Andrea later
Oh,
to go
absolutely.
over this stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't need to send my parks questions over to Mike Kennington to then refer to you, right? Unless you want me to. Okay, thank you.
She's just going to ask him if there's enough money to do what you want to do. Anything else? All right, hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is current events and conferences attended. Council members, do you have anything you'd like to share? You'd like to lead out the stuff?
I'll go ahead and go. Last Thursday evening, I attended Cahoots Flight Night with Benedictine University students and student entrepreneurial pitches. There's a competition. I think it was like $1,500 to the winner, and the churro kiosk won, which was quite obvious when you eat the churros and then vote. So that was a good marketing plan. Their churros served like a banana split with fruit and sauce and whip on top. On Friday, I attended the bicycling summit at ASU Mix, and as cars become increasingly more expensive to buy and repair, e-bikes in particular will grow in popularity as an alternative transportation choice. I had a whole page of takeaways I won't share now, but it was a worthwhile summit. On Saturday, Cyclo Mesa was in Mesa City Plaza. It was well attended. It was a beautiful setting to have it in the plaza. They had the BMX bikes, zip line, art spins. Thank you to the sponsors and the City of Mesa Bike and Pedestrian Program for putting that together. It was very well done. And that evening, I attended Chico, which is the 50th anniversary fundraiser benefiting Latino and Indigenous arts, keeping those artists in practice and the history alive. The co-founders are Mesa's very own Carmen and Zarco Guerrero, and they were honored that night. It was a very nice event. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Pillsbury?
Thursday night, I also attended the student startup pitch battle, and it's just such a cool collaboration between Cahoots and then the Benedictine students, and there was so much energy, and it was just, I really happy that we have them in our downtown area and in our city. And then Friday, I wanted to thank Ilya Risky. He is our interim arts director right now, and he did a tour for our Flynn Brown Fellow Leadership Program group to come and tour our museums and the Mesa Arts Center and show off Mesa, which I love to do. And then on Saturday, I attended and participated in a panel for the ASU Spirit of Service Scholars Seminar on freedom of speech, and that was just a lovely experience to be with the students and teachers and community there on Saturday morning.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, Mr. Brady, what's our future meetings look like?
Oh, it's going to get better. Thursday, we'll begin at 7:30, and we'll be reviewing the public safety budgets. Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Goforth. Ms. Pillsbury, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll see you.